Hey everyone, it's Daniel Litwin, the voice of B2B, coming at you from our Dallas, Texas studios, and welcome to this very special Keeping Count broadcast brought to you by the Datascan team. Again, thank you for joining us. We're really looking forward to breaking down our core topics today, sitting down for some roundtable conversation and talking shop, pun intended, on some of the most important trends, challenges, updates, and opportunities for reinventing and reimagining the inventory management and counting process for the auto parts industry. Now, before we get into our core talking points today and introduce our guests, I want to make sure you're all caught up on our other Datascan content. So make sure you're heading to our website, datascan.com. Again, datascan.com. There you'll find episodes of our podcast, Keeping Count, and other important resources on our solutions and services. All right, let's jump in, folks. On today's episode of the show, again, we're going to be doing a deep dive on Datascan's break into a new important industry for us. That'd be the auto parts sector. And it's a sector that's ripe for digital transformation right now and how it handles its inventory management and inventory processes. But more than just doing a breakdown on Datascan's new product offering, we really wanted to make this broadcast a chance to understand the challenges that the auto parts sector is facing today in scaling some of their operations, while also simultaneously trying to manage manual, labor-intensive, and often inefficient counting methods. And so we think it's time to rethink some of these legacy processes. And to do so, we're sitting down with not only the Datascan team, but also with a professional who's on the ground handling large inventory of auto parts. So we're going to be getting a wide variety of perspectives. Let's go ahead and introduce the guests. So for Insights today, I'm excited to welcome our roundtable of professionals. First up, we're joined by Mr. Tom Calloway. He's president and CEO of A2CX, as well as SmartCount. Tom, welcome. How you doing?
Thank you. Doing great. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Of course. It's a pleasure getting to sit down and source your perspectives today. And then we're also joined by the Datascan team. First up, we've got Ron Resnick. He's Business Development Manager for the Automotive Division at Datascan. Ron, how you doing?
Great. Thanks for having us today, Dan.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for joining us. And finally, Mr. Nick Ford, Director of Inventory Solutions at Datascan. Nick, how you doing?
Awesome. Thank you.
Last but not least, right?
It's always the way.
Always the way. Hey, give yourself some more credit. All right, Tom, Ron, and Nick, thank you again for joining us and, talking shop here on this roundtable. I think we're going to have a lot of fun, and I want to start by keeping things a little light. So we are going to jump in immediately into what we see as some of the biggest challenges as well as advantages in the auto parts sector today, especially when it comes to just their inventory management processes. And so, audience, we're going to introduce these whiteboards. You may have noticed, why do we have whiteboards sitting in front of us? Well, we're not just doodling and we're not just playing hangman. We're going to be playing a little bit of a visual game here. So what I want all of y'all to do is go ahead and get your expos ready. And the main question here is write down in 5 seconds, and I'll start the count, what you see is the biggest challenge for the auto parts side of the auto industry in 2022, right? All right, let's count it down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 2.5, 1.5, and 0. There it is. All right. So let's see them, folks. If we've got any alignment or if everyone's got a different perspective, flip them. What they said: global supply chain, database accuracy, and supply. Well, you made this rather easy, Nick. I'm just going to transfer over to Ron to start here. All right, Ron. You said the global supply chain.
I did.
Why that?
So, obviously, COVID has changed the supply chain, not only from the ability to get auto parts to the dealers from the suppliers, but also raw material shortages have been created. So it's kind of a two-edged sword. And it really, truly has been very, very difficult just to keep the right parts on the shelf.
Right.
So, definitely not the norm from what it has been in years past.
Would you say that that's affecting just kind of the small day-to-day parts, or also the more, I guess, large-scale niche, case-by-case parts in the auto parts sector? I mean,
it's been all-encompassing. It's really impacting all parts, and it's impacting vehicles and the
just
manufacturing.
Like full vehicles.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. The ability to manufacture vehicles. So very challenging, and challenging for the dealers. Again, just to keep parts on the shelf. Yeah. Really tough. So,
Have you been experiencing the same thing?
Yeah, no, I would echo that. And I think there's a couple of elements. One, the supply chain in itself has holes in it that have been exacerbated through COVID. And then you've got supply breakdowns in certain segments, particularly anything that's chip driven or technology. That's certainly an issue that's been feeding into that. And it's only going to get more challenging when the inventory shift to a dual inventory between internal combustion and electric, right?
Sure. And you also said database accuracy in your on your whiteboard answer there. Would you say that is kind of intersecting with the supply chain issue as well? Is it a separate issue, or kind of how do those interact?
So supply chain has always been a challenge to start. Sorry, database accuracy has always been a challenge to start with. You add into it COVID and human resource issues and being able to staff appropriately. The pressure that's come from COVID as it relates to the profitability on the total store and the pressure that puts on the total business leaks into departments whether or not they're the profitable end of the business or not. So that creates staffing pressures, other dynamics outside of that with the supplemental checks that came that might be driving some of the lower end of being able to hire and retain the right people, all that have driven that. And the reality is that database accuracy has a broader effect on the productivity and profitability of departments that the parts department supplies. It's not just about asset protection.
Right. Nick, anything to add there?
I think that the challenge that we see at Datascan across the board is one of inventory accuracy, flexibility, and the ability to really be aware real time what's going on. And as much as you don't have something like buy online, pick up in store, BOPIS for automotive, you still have customers bringing in a vehicle with a perhaps unknown situation that needs to be dealt with as expeditiously as possible for the customer's sake. So for the dealers to know where and what inventory they have or where they can source it, it's critical.
Definitely. All right, we're going to jump to the flip side now. We're going to talk biggest opportunities now for the industry. So another game round. I'll have y'all visualize here. But again, instead of a challenge, what do we see as the biggest opportunity or a potential solution out there for addressing some of these key challenges for the auto parts sector? So we'll count it down again. 5, 4, 3, 2.5, 1.5. I gotta make sure to give you all the time. And 0. Okay, let's flip it. Let's see it. What do we got here? Technology, electrification, automation, and processes. I love it. Diversity. Okay, we'll start on the flip side now. Nick, you said technology. Is it specific technology? Do you see it as just the entire digital transformation of the industry? Kind of, how would you hone in on your answer there?
I was thinking about it more selfishly from the inventory counting perspective.
Love it, sure. Naturally, I love it.
I mean, it's astounding to me that, I have the privilege of driving a new Mercedes-Benz right now, and it is out of this world wonderful. Just in terms of the technology and everything that comes together. Over the last 15 years, I've seen an incredible, coming together of customer needs and the automobile. And despite that, the back end, there has not been a lot of development and change towards helping the dealers serve their customers, as I mentioned earlier.
Right.
So when, for example, we go to work with a dealer, the process that we have to go through, it's retailers back in the 80s.
Would you agree? Is that what you're seeing?
100%. Yeah. Some of the DMS systems that the dealers use to calculate stock orders and do their inventories are honestly very antiquated, 80s technology, which is difficult. And the reality is, and it's very simple, if you don't know what you have on the shelf, you're either running out because you don't have enough or you're ordering way too much, and parts are expensive. So I don't want to have too much.
Right.
So,
that's fair.
And then electrification really brings in a completely different segment because combustion engine cars are not going away. Right. They're going to be around for a long time. So dealers and parts stores are going to have to keep those parts, but they're going to have the addition of a number of SKUs to support the electric vehicle conversion. And some of the manufacturers, most of them are talking about 25% electric within the next 5 to 8 years. So,
which in the grand scheme of things, 5 years is a blip, honestly.
Yes, absolutely.
So, you see electrification as something that the industry should begin to adapt to, but you also see it as an opportunity, right? What about it is exciting or something that you think will push the industry in a positive direction?
Well, I think just the commitment from the manufacturers that they've made to convert such a substantial amount of their fleets and what will eventually be coming into service departments for repairs. They're going to have the parts on the shelf, which is going to be another challenge. So, but I think it's exciting because it is another segment.
Another segment means more opportunity. More customers.
Absolutely.
I love it. And more partnerships to build too, to supply some of those parts. Yeah, I love that. All right, we'll jump over to Tom. Tom, you said automation.
I said automation. I cracked under the time pressure. What I'm really thinking is from an analytics standpoint and better leveraging data. So, and I think this true brings a ton to the table from that perspective, and it was one of the things that really attracted me to that. In the parts environment within the automotive universe tends to be an underinvested area, particularly when it comes to thinking about it from a scientific standpoint. Ron listed off a couple of areas of frustration of what happens when you don't have the part on the shelf. Even worse, if it is when you have the part on the shelf, but you have it on the wrong shelf and nobody can find it. You've got it sitting there and you still pay a premium to go get it somewhere else, or even worse, you lose the sale. So I think it is completely underestimated the impact of having a lack of database accuracy of what it impacts on the profitability of the departments that the parts department supports.
Totally.
So data analytics and being able to leverage the DART system and the science behind what these guys do and apply that into our industry. Ron mentioned, the trying to be kind, the fact that there's room for improvement with the dealer management systems. And again, parts is not necessarily the area primarily that everybody's focused on. It's more about service tickets and selling vehicles. So this will put people in a position, especially as they have to be more dialed in with a similar level of investment to satisfy two entirely different segments of vehicles. That inventory accuracy or lack thereof will exponentially get worse if we don't provide a solution. And I think not just from a process improvement of making the inventory experience go better, we're teaching them how to not just be cramming for the test once a year, but to build practices in place and a cycle count discipline all through the year, that database accuracy doesn't hit its peak right before an annual event. It stays at its peak all year round, and that will translate into huge performance improvements out of the production environment, right?
Yeah. Do you have any specific examples from on the ground, working at A2CX that highlight that need for inventory accuracy, or some of the challenges that come from not having the complete picture and then creating a solution?
Yeah, well, let's start with the challenges. The challenges are obvious. So if the database is not accurate, you could have the part, yet it's in the wrong address. When a counter person goes to look for the part, you don't find it. So the assumption is that it's not there because you don't have a huge amount of confidence in your database accuracy in the first part, because you've been through this every day of your life. And what happens is one of two things: either you lose the sale, or almost as bad, you buy it down the street, which you pay a premium for, and the technician is now either idle for that 30 minutes, or even worse, they have to pull the vehicle out and pull another vehicle in. And that's in the dealership world. In the smaller environments, they don't have as many bays or lifts as the large dealerships do, so that becomes even more so a problem. And the probably a loose translation would be, for an average size dealership with let's say $600,000 worth of inventory, every point that you lose of database accuracy is probably worth about $5,000 worth of gross out of the service department of parts and labor value combined. So if you're at 99%, you slip to 98%, that's one thing. If you're at 80%, that you're leaving tons on the table.
Totally. Yeah, and those costs, I'm sure they stack up year over year. And y'all mentioned supply chain challenges. I mean, if folks are already struggling to get the parts they need, last thing you need is to then not know what parts you do already have, and then it's
Exactly.
compounding cost challenges.
Totally.
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
So let's talk Datascan now. So I know this is a big break for y'all, jumping into the auto business. Nick, let's start with you. Can you walk us through and give us some insights into this partnership with Datascan and the auto industry, and how y'all are approaching bringing your tried and true solutions that you've perfected in other industries and then transplanting them into the needs of the auto parts sector?
Oh, simple.
Love it. Yeah, there we go. All right.
Multi-part question.
And we're done. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, right.
Technology.
So I mean, first of all, I love talking Datascan, and Datascan as an organization, and I've been in the inventory accounting world for a decade or two, and it is I'm daily impressed with the level of technology that Datascan brings to the equation, the ease of using the handheld, and the after count systems and data and analytics that come into play. When I was in a previous life, when I was in the inventory accounting world, I attempted to get into the auto market because it's significant. I mean, not only do you have over 17,000 new car dealerships, but you've got RV, you've got leisure craft, you've got all the used car lots. I mean, some of the dealers affectionately called rock lots. Yeah. Right? So everybody's got inventory. There's lots of inventory, but it's a very particular area that requires an understanding of how the dealership operates, what's important. As an example, we were in a parts department today, and you look at a product, and it's got 5 barcodes on it. I mean, if you're in a retail store and they had 5 barcodes, I mean, somebody get fired. Yeah. so you just look at that and say, okay, what do I do? Right? And so it does require specific knowledge, parts knowledge, to be able to accurately and efficiently, I mean, the technology can help, but you want to be efficient too, move through and capture that data. And as Datascan was looking for a partner, we talked to different people. We end up talking with Tom, and I have to say, and in a way, I'm sorry we're being recorded. He struck us all immediately as extremely knowledgeable. Very well connected. Being with these two is just an exercise in name dropping. I mean, they know everybody, and it's impressive. Yeah. The depth of knowledge and understanding. It's really impressive. And
would you say that breadth of knowledge is both an advantage but also unique when you look at this? The market of solutions that try to achieve something similar in inventory management? Or maybe a better question is, how do you see that being leveraged to the advantage of y'all's clients? Those connections and that breadth of knowledge.
Yeah, it's interesting the way you pose the question, actually, because I mean, it wouldn't be difficult to find somebody who's worked in a parts department for a long period of time. Sure. It wouldn't be difficult to find a dealer or an ex-dealer who's managed a number of dealerships. But with Tom and also with Ron, we have a couple of individuals who have been senior level executives at significant automotive ventures, and in the process, they had to implement, design, control, and manage parts inventories at national levels. And so it's humbling in a way when you sit and you listen to the knowledge and expertise. And I hope you edit that last part out.
No.
I thank you very much. $20 in the mail for you.
Yeah, there it is.
I see it the exact opposite way, quite frankly. I think there's a ton of smart folks in the automotive industry, and I feel blessed to be in this partnership. What's been missing is the skill set that you guys bring to the table and the technology and the background, and it's a night and day difference. Having been through the due diligence of all the other players, both at the DMS level and other third parties that were trying to get in and provide a solution, it doesn't even compare. And there's no words that I can really put to it until people get to actually see the process of both from a manufacturing standpoint as well as the quality control process to prep for each of the events as we take care of our combined clients.
Yeah. And I think, Tom and I have both spent a lot of time in retail as well as on the corporate level. we've been involved with and done hundreds of inventories. The current process for 98% of the dealers out there is very manual, so it leaves a lot of room for mistakes and errors. Two-man teams, a counter and a writer, key punching every number manually in with revised counts. With Datascan equipment, scanning is easy. Everything's barcoded now. The scanners are phenomenal. I mean, I was so excited when I first started talking to Nick and Mark, and clearly Tom, who put me in touch with Datascan, about the opportunity to bring more dealers into the 21st century with not just great technology, but a solution that provides accuracy, security, efficiency, and clearly a reduced cost. So it's a very exciting time, and I think a lot of dealers and parts departments are going to benefit greatly from this technology.
I'm glad you bring up the bottom line too, because I mean, I think any of these digital transformation style investments nowadays need to have that ROI front of mind. And like, yes, it can be fun to announce we just invested in a great technology, it's buzzy, everyone's doing it, but like if you don't have a strategy that centers how can we actually calculate that this is reducing costs and that all of the domino effects of, okay, now we don't need to have two-man teams, we can have a one-man team. Okay, now we actually can identify which parts have been hidden behind three other parts and we didn't lose it in the process of trying to deliver on this job. You can compound all of that, analyze it, and then make actionable business decisions based on those domino effects.
Well, and it goes a step further than that, because one of the things that Datascan brings to the table is the analytics.
Right.
And so what you're seeing in the industry now is an incredible amount of consolidation. Yeah. Dealers are, large dealers are buying smaller dealers. Part of that's because of the cost and the personnel and technology. I mean, everything costs more, so you want a broader revenue base.
Sure.
And so with Datascan Analytics now, we can give dealer owners that opportunity to compare performance across their stores and make decisions. Why is this happening here? Why is that happening there? Why are we not seeing this here? And start to make, I think, more global decisions.
It's an ideal software for dealer groups with multiple locations, some even hundreds of locations, because now staff at the corporate or regional level doesn't have to go to the store to watch the inventory and process. They can actually go onto the DART software and from anywhere in the world look at any inventory count that's in process or that's already taken place. And that's very significant, because traveling to all these different locations to manage or monitor the inventory, it's not necessary today, right?
And that alone is a cost sink, a resource sink.
And imagine that using that person's resources in a way they're better suited, as opposed to, I don't want to say a menial task, but a repetitious kind of task that, they can be creative, they can do business development and those kinds of things. So they have time to spend their efforts on other more important tasks.
Which is critical, especially as we see all industries lean towards wanting to reskill and upskill their employee base, because everyone's dealing with labor crunches right now. And you kind of brought this up, Ron, and I want to get a quick follow-up here, but you were highlighting some of the challenges that the current industry is experiencing, specifically around how it goes through its counting processes. So staffing, right, two-man teams versus one-man teams, some antiquated systems. Can you just dig in a little further and give us a bullet list of what those key areas are that specifically you see Datascan helping to identify and also create solutions for?
Well, so clearly one-man teams are much better than a two-man team, right?
50% reduction.
And again, with the DART software, I can see who's counting, how efficient or how long it's taking them to count a bin, and then what their accuracy is at the moment, real time. The historical way of conducting the inventory is, after the count's done, sitting at a terminal and punching in all these counts. Well, if you're punching 5,000 SKUs in, what is the likelihood of having data entry errors? It's huge. With our solution, and our CDK partnership and approved status, those revised counts are uploaded back into the DMS. Nobody has to touch a terminal. So it's clearly 21st century technology that I think especially the franchise automotive dealers are really going to embrace.
Tom, what do you see as the Datascan advantage compared to some of the other players in the market today?
Yeah, I think these guys hit on it very well. I think there's multiple variables to the ROI, and it's simple math to say that you cut one body, but the reality is that it's even more efficient than the standard count. So it's really, you need a third of the manpower, right? So the guns cost less than DMS solution. The integration is certified through the DMS and is done by a technology group that's a global presence that does this over hundreds of thousands of SKUs a week, right, with all kinds of experience and science built into that, and a fantastic team that supports them. And the design is not so much just to stop there, it is to take it to the next level. And for those dealers that are so inclined and have the resources within that would like assistance to move to a complete self-scan environment where the guns are shipped to them if they're not already leasing them on a regular basis for cycle counts, where they do it and not relying on a third party. And we would be glad to, really what we want to do is help people get more and more efficient and focus on bigger and better things than just counting parts. So for those that are capable of that, this is a part of the roadmap, is to get them to where they don't even rely on a third party to do that. These guys have mastered doing that globally in tons of other retail environments, and that was just yet another concept of how they approach the business that attracted me to them.
I think you just teed me up really well for my next point here, but that autonomous nature of empowering the dealerships and the various auto parts businesses to handle these counts themselves and to almost internalize the technology as just part of their larger process, I think also introduces the fact that there are different kinds of inventory counts per dealership, and these inventory counts, like identifying them early, providing the right solution, and helping work with the business to develop a strategy to implement it is essential. So I want to get y'all's thoughts on how the needs and the solutions differ slightly for each of these types. So we've got the self-scan inventory count, we've got the guided inventory count, and we've got the full service inventory count. Can you kind of break down each one of those? And again, what are some of the specific needs for each? And then how you see the Datascan team stepping in to create solutions?
Sure. So self-scan clearly would be the most economical for a dealer, where, as Tom just said, Datascan would prepare the equipment, the scanners, and the hotspots and so forth, provide the dealer with the software. All of our equipment is clean, charged, programmed with software, ready to go. Literally, they open up a box, they take out the scanners. I personally have used the scanner several times. Literally, it takes you 5 minutes to get acclimated to how to use one of our scanners. And the software is very intuitive and easy for an experienced parts manager to pick up very quickly. In addition, we offer 24/7 helpline. So anywhere or any time that they were in the midst of a self-scan inventory, if they did have a problem, it's super easy for them to get assistance instantly.
Is there a charge for that?
No, sir.
Exactly.
Yes.
So one of the key points is the DMS solutions. There is a charge for that support during the event.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think further to your question, so if you think about it, one of the primary reasons or differences in the self-scan versus the full service or even guided is that there's a mentality of requiring third-party validation, and for varying reasons. If it's M&A activity or a buy-sell, and there's a buyer and seller, they want an independent third party, and that probably never goes away, right? That you still need at least somebody driving the process that doesn't report to and isn't vested in either party. And then, publicly held companies, another large group, think about it from a SOX and or a compliance perspective, and or don't trust their cycle count process at least enough to think that it survives a full-blown the full-blown scrutiny of an audit, right? And that is a bridge that can be crossed, and everybody does not need to be on this third-party mentality. If you need a third party for buy, sell, and or for compliance, that's one thing, but there's plenty of space, and even if it's every other year, to be thinking more along the lines of doing self-scans. And really, again, the punchline is they should be more focused on the discipline of the cycle count and daily inventory accuracy, and not just cramming for the test once a year, right? Doesn't accomplish what the real mission is, other than making somebody in the front office feel a little bit better that their investment, at least most of it, is still sitting back there.
Nick, thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting because I said at the beginning about the unique aspects of the automotive world. There are also a lot of similarities with the retail world.
Sure.
And clearly one of those is that with Datascan, if you can reduce the cost of that once a year count and you see value from that count, now for the same money, you could do 2 counts or 3 counts. Or you can introduce the concept of cycle counting. We talked to a vice president of an automotive group, and his question was, would I know if the cycle counts were done? And you hear the same thing with retailers, because there's a task. You give a task to a task-saturated individual. Do cycle counting.
Right.
And it drops to the bottom of the list. And so how do they know it gets done? They go onto the Datascan system and they can see if it's been done.
Full service platform, easy to view, easy to review.
100%.
Yeah.
Which is critical. I mean, because having that touch point and that communication, I don't think ever goes away either. And so rather than, okay, walk me through. Did you do every single step? Yes, here's the sheet. Yes, here's the manual count. It's just, oh yeah, you can just jump on the Datascan platform, check. Yep, oop, there it is, done.
Done.
Right? Yeah.
Done. And then, so guided scan is really a self-scan with an inventory manager provided through A2CX to really just act as a supervisor over the actual inventory process, knows and familiar with the equipment, the software, so can take that pressure off of the parts manager in the dealership.
And when would that be most applicable? Would it be during the M&As that you were mentioning?
So it can be. So to Ron's point, so these are folks that would be supplied by the dealer or dealers if it's M&A activity. And the plus is that they have more ownership of those people and more control, and it's not strangers showing up, and the likelihood of their automotive experience being deeper. All of it breeds a more accurate and higher quality inventory. So we've been pressing that direction to get away from some of the other players in the space that draw from other industries that really don't understand automotive.
Fair.
I think if I could add to that, one of the things that I'm already seeing as I'm being exposed to these folks and what they're about is that the dealer management system is there to provide the service around the parts inventory. But the inventory counting module is almost tacked on as a bit of an afterthought. It's not very well designed and it's not very efficient. And so one of the reasons why A2CX is needed is because when inventory time comes around, these folks are looking at this system and they haven't touched that module for a year.
Yeah.
So much like SAP in retail has an inventory module that is also just a bolt-on, and you need somebody to come in and help manage that process. It's so the vision that we have is that we're going to have dealer partners who are going to become more familiar with the process because of the ease of using Datascan, and be really comfortable with doing these counts more often and getting the benefit from it.
Absolutely.
I think that's a key point, right? So another reason folks defer to that third party, other than third party or independent validation, is it's just easier because it's been such a complicated process. And with the integration that these guys have built out and leveraging their process and the tool, it is fire and forget. It's super easy to get somebody up to speed in about 2 minutes and walk them through the process and turn them loose. And then the ability to audit through the process and identify any errors or issues just makes problem solving that much more real time.
And there definitely is a big place for full count. A good example might be we've changed managers in the parts department. Someone is new. Maybe they're less experienced. Maybe they've been promoted from an assistant. And again, in retail, they're doing 1 count a year. It's hard to get really good and be proficient when you do something once a year, right?
Yeah.
We clearly have all experienced that. So, that's an excellent time to have Tom come in with the Datascan equipment.
Either guided or full. And guided,
Correct.
we take care of that part as well. They don't have to be the experts.
Absolutely. So, it just really depends on the individual dealership, what their current situation is. But I think, and that's the great part of how we've positioned this, is there really is a solution for everyone. So,
which is exciting. And what I think is also useful about Datascan's trajectory into this space is that not only do you have a partnership to support it, but also you have years of experience of understanding that it's not always cookie cutter in every industry, right? Retail is going to have various different kinds of counts. Like you said, there's daily counts, there's once a year counts, and the weight of those processes, the time it takes, why that data is necessary for larger vision business strategies informs being able to take what does apply to the auto parts sector, but then also with these partnerships, being able to identify what's unique and then build your solutions just for that. So
absolutely.
Yeah, it's really exciting stuff. And I think with that, what we'll do is get into our final sales pitch here. So I'll let y'all kind of summarize and reiterate for our audience here. What do you see making Datascan the ideal inventory counting solution, but more specifically moving into this year, right, through 2022, based on some of the current contexts of supply chain challenges, labor challenges, whatever, what makes Datascan the ideal inventory counting solution for today's context?
I'll start.
Yeah.
I'll leave the more automotive-oriented response to my colleagues. But I think that the technology that Datascan brings to the table, the online visibility, the fact that you see so much consolidation going on in this sector right now means that you must have better control. Yeah. And in the same way in retail, control is dollars. And it's money that is already being spent, so why not have as much of it go to the bottom line as possible?
Very fair.
I think, and you said it several times, it's exciting. I've said it many times as I was talking to Nick about coming on at Datascan, because I got very excited as I learned more about the product and what we could do with the product. So I just think that it's a tremendous solution. It comes at a very reasonable cost, regardless of which solution you were to choose. And maybe you aren't able to choose. Maybe you need us to assist and guide you through that decision as well.
Right.
But we do have a lot of automotive experience. We've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, for sure. Tom and I have worked together before, and have the utmost respect for him and his company. So I just think it's exciting, and it's bringing the opportunity to bring a fairly antiquated process into the 21st century with the, again, accuracy and efficiency that dealers haven't known, that have never had a scanned inventory before. So,
Tom, final thoughts?
I think it's a huge win anytime you can take an inherently complex process and simplify it.
Yep.
And if you can do that and reduce cost or increase profit, or both at the same time, or at least position your client to be able to reap the rewards off of that through something that you've affected or changed about their business, is huge. And not everybody can say that they can bring that to the table and then do it, right? And again, what's excited me about the Datascan team is that that's really been the missing link within the automotive industry, and why I was so attracted to working with these guys. And I'm super excited about the things that we're going to help people do through this year and years beyond.
And what's exciting is that this is just the beginning. So I'm sure we're going to be having a lot of follow-up conversations to see how the auto parts sector is adopting and adapting to the Datascan solution. And like we often see in these digitally transforming industries, and I'm sure you can attest to in retail, there's a chicken and the egg solution too, right? Datascan enables a new perspective on how to approach these processes, and with that you get feedback on how Datascan can continue to meet this new standard, and then it's open feedback, and then you develop, and then they get new opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing that open dialogue too in the industry take place, but I think for now, we'll go ahead and cap it, because this has been a great conversation, and I think we've left our audience with a lot to chew on. So last thing is I want to make sure our audience knows where to get more information. So make sure you're going to datascan.com for a free evaluation of your current inventory process. You can also connect with Mr. Ron Resnick here on LinkedIn to begin that conversation. Any other touch points we should point people to, websites or personal contacts to get that conversation flowing?
I think on my end it would be a2cxmanagement.com, and the brand that we will be under in the years to come is starting this month, and that is SmartCount. So smartcount.com as well.
And Nick, on your end?
Datascan.com, always around.
Perfect. Love it.
Or find me on LinkedIn.
Yes, LinkedIn's the easy one. I love it. All right, team. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, folks, we've been chatting with our three guests: Tom Calloway, President and CEO of A2CX and SmartCount; Ron Resnick, Business Development Manager for Automotive Division at Datascan; and Nick Ford, Director of Inventory Solutions at Datascan. It's been a real pleasure getting to chat with all three of y'all. Thank you again for joining us.
Thanks,
Thank
Daniel.
you.
It's been awesome.
Appreciate it.
And thank you everyone for joining us on this very special broadcast with Keeping Count, brought to you by Datascan. If you like what you heard and saw today and you want some previous pieces of Datascan content, make sure you're heading to our website, datascan.com. Make sure you're subscribing to our podcast, Keeping Count, and we'll catch you on our next broadcast. I'm your host, Daniel Litwin, the voice of B2B, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Keeping Count.